Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. Zion Williamson looks to be in great shape, Tone. How's your physique these days?
I'm Tony Kornheiser. With or without Spanx? You got to tell me, with or without Spanx?
Well, if you don't tell anybody and you're not flexing, you might get away with it. You might get away with some Spanx.
So Zion and Luka, who you have been very critical of for years.
Yes, both of them.
Right?
Both of them.
Both in shape, right?
Yes, fair.
Both of them in shape.
They look great.
Yeah, we'll see. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Derrick Henry fumbles, the Reeling Tigers face the Rolling Guardians, and Jeff Saturday joins us for 5 good minutes. But we begin today with the Detroit Lions going on the road to Baltimore and beating the Ravens 38-30. That's a lot of points. Jared Goff was 20 of 28 for 202 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. And the Lions ran like crazy. David Montgomery had 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 67 yards and 2 other touchdowns. Wilbon, you said yesterday you were rooting against Detroit. What does this victory say about the Lions?
Yeah, Tony, they look like they found their stride fairly early in the race. It's a long season. Things can happen. But listen, Tony, when you have that defense healthy, and it wasn't last year, they lost almost everybody important to the defense. They lost them all before Thanksgiving, and they limped into the final stretch of the season in the playoffs against the Commanders. That ain't the case now. They got these dudes out there, and they want to run the ball. They want to pound you. The score doesn't say they pounded Baltimore, but they pounded Baltimore. You showed David Montgomery, look, the Bears got rid of him. And you can look at the production and say, well, the production might be the same, but there's a toughness about David Montgomery, a toughness about him that the Lions rely on, and they play well when they can flex in that way and run the ball and set up what they want to do, still trick plays, even though Ben Johnson's gone. The Lions look like they needed a moment in week 1 to say, let's just give us a minute to figure out what's going on. And they figured it out, and now it's let's go.
Yeah. There is an ebb and flow to a season. When you only have 17 games, there's a tendency to maybe make a judgment a little bit early. The Lions were beaten decisively by Green Bay in the opening game, right? 27-13. And a lot of people, including you, got on the Packers and said that looks like a Super Bowl team. And maybe threw away the Lions a little bit. I found it odd, I remember saying this on the air, that by week 2, Dan Campbell was saying this is a must-win. Really, so quickly. And that was the Bears, and they crushed the Bears. That's a division team. They crushed them. Was it 52-21?
52.
Now they beat Baltimore on the road, a perennial playoff team. They have answered all of these things. They have scored 90 points in the last 2 games. There was a Lions team that did that as recently as 1962. And they ran, you want to talk about running, 224 yards running. So they answered whatever criticism was out there. And I think when it gets time to the Wilbon power rankings in the NFC, you have to put the Lions once again in the top 3 or 4, right?
Oh, no doubt, Tony. When you go into Baltimore and you do that, yes. And again, maybe week 1, you mentioned it, and it's fair to mention it. But week 1 was wait a minute, we're starting over here with some things. We're getting our star pass rusher back after missing most of last season. We got 2 new coordinators. We got some stuff we got to figure out. Give us a moment. They took the moment, and they seem to have figured it out. Seem to have. It's early.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
It is impressive. Yeah. The Ravens, meanwhile, suddenly find themselves at 1-2. The defense has struggled, and Derrick Henry fumbled the ball away again last night, Tone. What do you see as the big questions the Ravens need to answer?
How much time do we have? Because there are a lot of questions out there, okay? And let's start with the lines, the offensive line and the defensive line. The offensive line did not protect yesterday. Lamar Jackson was sacked 7 times. That's the most he's ever been sacked. The defensive line was non-existent. This is a franchise built on defense. You associate defense with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
Last night they gave up 2 drives of 95 yards or longer, 25 plays, and they could not stop the team in 25 plays. I mean, Baltimore has now given up, let me get it right, 96 points. That's the second worst in the NFL. And they have their 2 best players on offense. Lamar Jackson, he fumbled. Got it back, but he fumbled, and Derrick Henry fumbled. This is a fantastic statistic. Derrick Henry's fumbled 3 times in 43 touches this year. In 2023 and 2024, he fumbled 3 times as well in 694 touches.
Yeah.
Okay? So if we broaden this out, what have we learned? Baltimore has played 2 good teams. Buffalo and Detroit, they've lost both those games. They had leads in both those games. They lost both those games. They gave up 79 points in those games. This is not what we think of as a Super Bowl team.
No, Tony, the 79 points is the disturbing part to me. This is the franchise of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Tony Siragusa. This is not a franchise where people go up and down like a track meet, like the World Track and Field Championships we just been watching against the Ravens in Baltimore. It's stunning to see. They got to fix that first and foremost. And John Harbaugh talked about we had no run defense. They didn't. They had no run defense. You go 224 at home, somebody goes 224 down your throat. But let me get to something. This is going to sound sacrilegious. I hesitate to mention it because Lamar Jackson is so gifted and great, and he can beat you from the pocket. He can beat you outside of it. He can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his legs. Tony, I wonder looking at Lamar Jackson last night if he's lost his burst, if he has lost his explosion. I'm talking about he got caught from behind a half dozen times last night.
Yes. Yeah.
That's not Lamar Jackson. And I'm looking at this, and I'm scared to text it. But I text people, and I was like, I don't know if I should go here, but is it possible that 7 years in with all the hits, 7+ that he's taken, he's not even 29 yet, that it's just he's lost that magical burst. He's merely a great athlete now and not otherworldly. Listen, I hope I'm wrong. I hope the question is stupid, but I'm looking at it last night going, I don't see the Lamar Jackson I've been used to seeing.
All right. Let's turn to baseball now and the closest division race remaining, and that would be the AL Central, where Detroit is only 1 game ahead of Cleveland. Detroit has lost 9 of its last 10. Cleveland has won 15 of its last 17. And they begin a 3-game series tonight in Cleveland. Wilbon, which team would you rather see prevail?
Tony, I think Detroit, but I don't have a real reason. You know, these are 2, teams of the Midwest. And in other circumstances, I'd root for either one of them. I would. I've spent a chunk of my life being a Chicagoan, going to Detroit and Cleveland for various purposes. First, for family visits, I would go to the old ballpark the Cleveland Indians played in, which is where the Browns too played at the time. I'd go to the old Briggs Field to see the Tigers. And I love going to those places and watching baseball where it's been around for 150 years. And it's just sort of cool to see them. The air's not turning cool here in the Midwest as it usually does this late in September. But it's just great to see Cleveland and Detroit playing each other. The last time I was in Cleveland for a baseball game, there was something called Game 7, and the Cubs were winning a World Series. But I can't pick one over the other. Narrowly, Detroit maybe, but I'm interested in seeing this series and how it plays out.
This is a tough one for me because in that division, I root for the Kansas City Royals because their manager, Matt Catraro, listens to my podcast. I will say this, and I know you'll appreciate it. When you're a young sports writer and they send you out on long baseball road trips to fill in for the older guys, everybody loves going to Detroit in the middle of the summer because it stays light so long. They don't even have to put the lights on till the 8th inning. Sometimes you don't have to do it at all. Look, this is a very surprising turn of events. On July 9th, Detroit was 15 and a half games ahead of Cleveland. Detroit was 59 and 34. Cleveland was 42 and 48. Detroit has fallen like the Mets. And nobody in the world would expect Cleveland to be 15 and 2 at this point. Nobody knows anybody on that team except for Jose Ramirez. They can't hit, Mike. They're 30th in batting average. They're 27th in runs scored, but they can pitch. And this is the number. They've allowed 34 runs in the last 19 games. We talk about momentum. Cleveland has the momentum, but if momentum is today's starting pitcher, Detroit has Tarek Skubal on the mound tonight. Let's take a break. Coming up, how will the absence of Nick Bosa change things for the Niners' opponents? We will ask Jeff Saturday.
We'll also ask him if the Colts' early success is sustainable.
Yes, I think we have to root a little bit for Detroit because our friend Mitch Albom is from Detroit. right?
It's
got to root a
yeah,
little.
but
Let's dig back into the NFL trenches with our great friend ESPN NFL analyst Jeff Saturday. We're going to talk about Derrick Henry. He's a great running back, and no question about that. He's now fumbled 3 times already this year. He's lost 2 of them. As an offensive lineman, okay, I know you like to run the ball. Everybody in the offensive line would rather go forward than go backwards. But do doubts ever creep in, even with someone as great as Derrick Henry?
They really don't, Tony. And the truth is, what you're more concerned with is that the doubts creep in to his head. Because as an offensive lineman, you have this trust, this implicit trust in the guys that are going to run the ball. You're going to go put hat on hat. You're going to knock guys down. He's going to go make that explosive play like he made in the first quarter where he bounces it and takes it for 25 or whatever it was for a touchdown. So every time you put the ball in his hand, you're expecting an explosive play. Unfortunately, the last couple of weeks, it's been disastrous, right? The one against Buffalo and then the one last night. And you can see, like, the weight on him, and you can feel how disappointed he is in himself for what's going on. But as an offensive lineman, when you got a guy like Henry, a Hall of Famer, the guy is a freight train. He's a bring-your-own blocker. You love fighting for guys like that. You want to fight with him to get through this and look back on this as you're trying to ascend to the Super Bowl at the end of the year and go, man, you remember how bad we felt after week 3 and put this thing behind you.
Well, I know how much everybody in the industry hates injuries, Jeff, but the one guy people will not have to fight with anymore the rest of this season is Nick Bosa, who's out for the season now. What does that do for the offensive linemen as they face the 49ers and they don't have him specifically bearing down on them?
Yeah, so as an offensive lineman, you have pass rushers, tough ones, and you got closers. And Bosa is in the closer category, right? Game on the line, 3rd and 4 plus. Everybody in the building knows you got to throw it or you're going to throw it, and he's on the edge. You are moving around. You want to find him, right? Because he's the guy who's going to make the play. He's going to spin inside. He's going to hand slap you. He's going to work the edge. He's going to fight through you. He's going to be relentless in his rush. Strip sacks, all those kinds of things that kind of come to mind. Guys like that are difference makers in the NFL. There are a lot of really good pass rushers, but guys who close in those moments, which is the category I would put Bosa in, it is a sigh of relief. For offensive linemen, because those are the ones we put our antennas up, right? You track them, you find them. As a center, as you're calling protections, you're always looking to see where he's lined up. Is he coupled with somebody that he loves to run games with? There's a litany of things that you're thinking about when there's that kind of guy. It's a massive loss out in San Fran. You hate to see it for anybody, but the Niners have had a ton of injuries early, and that one's a big one because, again, as you get to the games that matter, you want guys like that lined up to close games out.
We're going to stay with offensive line for one more question, Jeff. The Houston Texans, 0-3 now, spent their offseason trying to build up, figure out what was up with their offensive line. I guess they came into the season thinking they had done it, and they haven't. What's the problem there? It sounds like more than one.
So I'm going to say it this way. This is when the idea of just players are going to fix a problem, right? This particular player is not going to be good, so we're going to replace him with someone else. The organization as a whole or the team as a whole has not done a good job of placing protection at the forefront. And Stroud is an absolute stud. I have a ton of respect for this kid. But he gets hit a ton. And I don't care how strong you are, how big you are. When you start getting hit, you start making bad decisions because bad things creep in your mind. Your feet move, your eyes drop down. There's a number of different things that happen to quarterbacks. This has to be a let's fix it with scheme as much as we're trying to fix it with just players. So whether you got to keep tight ends in, you got to keep backs out, you're going to have fewer guys in the route. And again, part of this is, running back was hurt. Mixon's hurt. So the run game isn't as good. Collins is there, but he's really your only threat. So there's not a lot of fear being struck in the defense anyway. So how can we manufacture? But I would tell you this. Every pass play that I ever ran with Peyton Manning as my quarterback was a protection first play. And you want to figure, how do we protect it and allow him to figure it out? Right now, Stroud has taken way too many hits, and it's trickling down into his performance and the offense as a whole.
Thank you for mentioning you and Peyton Manning. It gets me to the next question. You're great talking about other teams, but now we're going to talk about your team. You played for the Colts. You coached the Colts. The Colts are now a surprising 3-0. What are you seeing that's making them successful? Nobody figured 3-0. And is it sustainable?
Well, it is sustainable. And I will tell you, Warren, the addition of Warren offensively, the tight end who they drafted, early in the draft, has been phenomenal. The first game we were there for the Jim Irsay Ring of Honor induction, I think he caught the first 4 passes that Daniel Jones threw. Shane Steichen has done a fantastic job of getting him comfortable. Jonathan Taylor is on a blazing pace. They're running back. He's running wild. Their receivers are making big plays. Daniel Jones is averaging 9 yards a completion, 72%, I think, completion rate. Like it's absurd. But this team can do it because at every position, they're good. So at some positions they're great, but they're good at almost every position, from offensive line, receivers, tight end, running back. When you have that, and Daniel Jones is executing at a high level, it is sustainable. Their defense is doing their job, keeping this thing happening. The Denver thing is missed field goal, penalty, all that kind of stuff. That happens in the NFL. But this team, it will be one to face come playoff time because everybody will be nervous. Daniel Jones continues to keep playing the way he is.
Playoff time. You got him in the playoffs.
Yeah,
look at you.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks, Jeff.
I got him as
Thank you,
AFC
Jeff.
South champs, baby. Let's go.
All right, okay. Wow. Let's take one last break. Still to come, the Giants make a change at quarterback. Of course they did. Should we expect the results to differ?
And Oklahoma State says see ya to his long-time head coach. Tony, I always say Jeff is the voice of reason.
The Link Star was a finalist for WNBA MVP, but lost out to Asia Wilson, winning a record 4th MVP. Collier played for Gino Auriemma at Connecticut and won a national championship there in 2016. She has spent her entire WNBA career in Minnesota, where she was Rookie of the Year in 2019, Defensive Player of the Year in 2024, and a 5-time All-Star. Collier averaged a personal best, 22.9 points per game this regular season. The Lynx are currently 1 game up in their semifinal playoff series against Phoenix. Game 2 is tonight.
Tony, when you are a franchise and you lose the great Maya Moore, she retires. It's going to be impossible to replace her, except the feats of Collier, man, with a cast of characters, has come really close, and they have not suffered. They're back in the finals.
Happy anniversary, Dave Craig. On this day 40 years ago, the Seattle Seahawks quarterback bobbled a 4th and goal shotgun snap, then picked up the ball, that the Rams had tried to gather for a scoop and score, scrambled to his right, and threw a touchdown pass to the Seahawks' Danny Green. Craig started out as a 7th-string quarterback at a tiny, now-defunct school in Wisconsin, Milton College. He ended up in the NFL for 19 years after he worked out as an undrafted rookie for the Seahawks in 1980 and caught on as their 3rd-string quarterback. Craig became a 3-time Pro Bowler. His is the story that dreams are made of.
Tony, speaking of replacing people, Craig had to try and replace Jim Zorn, who was like everything at the beginning of that franchise's history. So if I said to you, you got to pick one, Craig or Zorn, which way you going?
Craig's numbers are better. His lifetime numbers are better.
Numbers.
Happy trails to Russell Wilson's starting job. The winless Giants are reportedly starting rookie Jackson Dart at home against the unbeaten Chargers on Sunday. The Giants are coming off a loss to the Chiefs, in which Wilson had a passer rating of just 43.8. The previous week, Wilson threw for 450 yards, but that was against the Cowboys defense, so everyone may have overrated it. The Giants drafted Dart 25th overall out of Ole Miss, and the fans have been chanting for him.
Tony, you can still put him in there too early and ruin him. Everybody's got to be rushed in because Russell Wilson's looked ordinary at this point. They had to know that when they signed him. It's not 2013. It's not Super Bowl Russ. What did you think you were doing? Unbelievable.
He's been ordinary for years. For years. And a bonus happy trails to doing it the easy way again for Jacob Young. The Nats center fielder made the show yesterday for a remarkable catch he made against the wall on Sunday when he lost the ball, then kicked it, caught it for an out. Last night, Young added to his highlight reel, bobbling a sinking liner before shagging it with his bare hand.
That's pretty good, Tony. I was going to say, he just coordinated this stuff. Nope. He's just quick and decisive. Maybe a little lucky.
Great fielder. If only he could hit. Big finish quickly. Oklahoma State fired football coach Mike Gundy. Does that make sense?
He won 10 games a lot of times. I know he had a bad season this year, 11 out of 12 losses going back to last year, but not the whole season. You couldn't give him the whole season. Titans head coach Brian Callahan handing over play calling duties to quarterbacks coach Bo Hardegree. What does that mean?
Means Hardegree knows Cam Ward better than anybody. It's a good move. The Liberty will not renew the contract of head coach Sandy Brondello. You're surprised, aren't you?
What? She won a championship a little over a year ago. What? Baseball will officially implement the automated ball strike challenges next season. You okay with that?
Emphatically. All right, Wilbon, what is your biggest takeaway from the Lions' win on Monday Night Football?
Well, Tony, my takeaway doesn't just involve the one game. It's got to involve all three games, starting with a loss up north in Green Bay and then beating the daylights out of the Bears and then coming to Baltimore and really taking it to the Ravens. It's got to involve all three because they lost to Green Bay and it was like, and I was sort of guilty thinking, is there too much brain drain from losing the coordinators? Can they recover from that? How long will it take? Didn't take long. They said we're going to come back and beat the Bears. It's necessary to beat them, and they did. And then go to Baltimore and win in that fashion. So I'm looking at a bigger arc to the narrative that they needed a moment. They had to figure out who they were and just sort of get their feet under them. This new addition with new coordinators, but with the same head coach, Dan Campbell, and with the same players. And once they figured it out, it's like, let's go. It's go time. It looks like they're on track. We'll see.
I'm going to agree with all of that. I'm just going to take the other side, that my biggest takeaway is what is going on with the Baltimore Ravens. This is a franchise built on defense. Biggest star they ever had is Ray Lewis. Yep. Right? And they got no defense at the moment. Detroit went down the field at least 95 yards sustained drive twice in that game, covering 25 plays. Baltimore has now given up 79 points against Buffalo and against Detroit. If we want to think of Baltimore as a Super Bowl contending team, you can't do that. The two good teams they have played, they have had leads, they have lost leads, they have lost those games. And again, it's deep. Everybody knows they can score points, but can they stop anybody? And in the playoffs, the teams you play are Buffalo, and Detroit. And you don't play the bad teams then. So I think there's a crisis point to a degree with Baltimore and their identity for the last, 15, 20 years?
And Tony, going into Kansas City this weekend. So to quote the great Lawrence Taylor, son, y'all got to do better than this. That's where the
one of those teams
Ravens are right now.
One of those teams, Kansas City and Baltimore, one of them is going to be 1 and 3.
Yeah, didn't have that one. Did you have that on ESPN Bet? I didn't have that one. That's it.
Didn't have that one. No.
We're done. Back to you.